Welcome. I am Daisy, your hostess, where I combine my passions of the mystic and literature in hopes to unlock wisdom within. In this video, we perform a little necromancy. Oh, don't be scared with that word. Lighten up. Every time we listen to Elvis, when he's singing, we're listening to the ghost of the dead. And just like that, it comes to life. So we too will do a little magic by bringing back to life the words of Homer's Odyssey, written around 750 BC, way before the printing press. As a matter of discovery, I read recently that a fragment of this epic poem containing 13 verses from the 14th book was unearthed near the Temple of Zeus in the ancient city of Olympia in southern Greece. And by the way, if you found me at this video, I'm glad you found me. Feel free to visit my book playlist and grab the previous chapters there. Additionally, I have left links from the resource that I'm getting these findings so that you can peruse them at your leisure. This video has book 15, titled How They Came to Ithaka. And to me, this particular book from this whole composite of poem, because he has them all by books, feels more like a filler chapter, like a filler book, that Odysseus is still trying to move along through this whole adventure. And here he finds himself still disguised as an old man, staying at the hut of Emmaus, his swineherder. Athena, the ever-doting aunt, as I mentioned it in a previous video, if you look at the family tree that I'm creating here, Zeus is Odysseus' great-great-grandfather. And goddess Athena, she's the daughter of Zeus. Now get this. She was produced without a mother, so that she emerged full-grown from Zeus's forehead. Yeah, it's a bit mind-boggling trying to see that, even imagine it, but I think that that's one of those things that when you see it, you can't unsee it. But then again, we're just mere mortals. Anyways, that being the case, it would make Athena Odysseus' great-grand-aunt. And she seems to hold Odysseus in favor as she's ever by his side, like an angel providing guidance. Now, in the Bronze Age, which is the setting for this poem, the Roman Empire was primarily a polytheistic civilization, which meant that people recognized and worshipped multiple gods and goddesses. And it was towards the end of that era that the presence of a monotheistic religion began to emerge within the empire, such as Judaism and early Christianity. Up until then, Romans honored multiple gods. So we're going to go down a little rabbit hole right now, but if you want to jump into the book 15, please visit the description and I have a jump link for you so you could get right into the story. Now I want to entertain this idea of the gods for a minute, if you let me indulge. The ideas of these gods and understanding religion in antiquity is not that they did not believe in things or that they lacked faith in the gods and goddesses. The way I see it, it was like freestyle, and not that the way we see it today in such a very like structured way that we have beliefs and faith and religion. Yet it is in the works of Homer, and he wrote the Iliad and Odyssey, and Hesiod wrote the Month and Days, and also the myths of the bards that's what we have as records of the shared knowledge about these concepts as the basis of stories of creation and the gods and heroes. There was no central authority like the Vatican to dictate conformity of beliefs and practices. Back then, each ethnic group developed rituals and practices and whatever they needed to worship. Some of them consisted sacrifices, and those things were passed down to their ancestors from gods. And most of that was, through the doing and also through the storytelling orally. And to that civilization, it was crucially important to carry out those rituals without mistakes for fear of some wrath, which I'm still trying to figure that one out. Now, the importance of this literature, this work that I'm sharing here on the channel, Homer's Odyssey, in a way helps to bring some light how structured religion came to be. Not that it came to be, but we get to see those first beginnings, those gods, and how we as human, through the storytelling, interacted with them. It does not take much to see that man played a huge role while using the assumption of power in the creation of a monotheistic belief or the creation of the religions that we see today. That evolution of the written word has helped to establish some timeline, and I'm happy for that, because when we did start writing things down, we as a human race, we were able to see how we went from multiple gods to the one God belief, or to the religions that we see today about gods or God. It is said that Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten, which came around 1353 to 1336 before the era of Christ BCE, during that period, the Amarna period, promoted the worship of Aten, the symbol of the sun, and it was the highest form of worship and therefore the one God. It is also said that the pharaoh Akhenaten didn't persecute anyone for worshiping other gods either, so he was pretty fair in that. Now, another source for the roots of ancient monotheism, or the belief in one God, can be found in Zoroastrianism, which became the state cult or the religion of ancient Persia. Zoroaster was a prophet which dates anywhere from 1000 to 600 BC. So this is getting closer to our time period here, but still before Christ. He prompted the worship of one supreme deity known as Ahura Mazda, who was the creator of everything in the universe. Then we have ancient Judaism, and that has influenced creating the origins of monotheism in the Western tradition. So ancient Jews conceived of a hierarchy of powers in heaven, the sons of God, and that could be seen in Genesis 6, angels and archangels, were the messengers from God who communicate God's will to humans, cherubims and seraphim. And the Jews also recognized the existence of demons, with many examples in the ministry of Jesus, in the gospel, in his role as an exorcist, which that opens up a whole trail to go to, another path to talk about the use of drugs and hallucinogens and necromancy and, dying or putting someone in a death state and then coming back, into life. All these things that pretty much documented. Anyway, we're going to stick with this, and that's for another video. Or you can visit Dr. Hillman's channel on YouTube titled Lady Babylon, if you have the strength for mystical exploration, that is. Now, the Jews, their foundation for this monotheistic belief comes from the narrative of Moses when he receives the commandments of God up on Mount Sinai, which some people debate. Was he real? Was he not real? Was he taking drugs? Was he seeing things? But anyway, Moses apparently comes down and he tells the people that he was told by God, I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me. Now, many historians and archaeologists such as Tom Holland and Philip Davis have issues with Moses in that they state that there's very little historical evidence that such a character existed. Cyprian Burbank, the professor of archaeology at Cambridge University, wrote in his recent history of the Mediterranean that the Exodus was at best a refracted folk memory of earlier expulsions of Levantine people, following the reconquest of the Nile Delta by the Egyptian king Amhos around 1530 BC. And he further states that puts it about 900 years earlier than the period in which the Hebrew Bible is supposed to have codified and written down. And I have a timeline here that you can look at for when certain things came into existence, and I also have the links so that you can check those resources or those sources. But he also added that there is no archaeological evidence for the biblical story of Moses, and that there's no extra biblical evidence in Egyptian inscriptions. And he adds, which I kind of thought was interesting for him to note. Not even the Bible account claims that the Israelites were employed as slaves to build the pyramids as they're in Hollywood. He pretty much states that they were simply slaves. And as I've mentioned, that back then slavery was a non-conversation. It was just something that happened. Nobody thought it appalling. I mean, today, you might agree, maybe we're all slaves of some sort or other. We just choose to convert it into hours. We work for someone. We have to get paid. We convert our labor into money. So, interesting. Anyway, as I share this, keep in mind the idea of the first written words. Even the stories of the Bible and the Torah were passed down orally. Was there room for embellishment? Was there any influence of the overall arcing theme that was the predominant collective thought? I mean, Jewish scriptures consistently refer to the existence of the gods. As an example, in Psalm 821, there's a quote there: God presides in the great assembly. He renders judgment among the gods. That's plural, isn't it? But I'm not here to debate your belief or my belief. I'm just here sharing a point in history. Even the greatest thinkers of the time had a part to play, Plato and others, Socrates, and those influenced the idea of monotheism. Many philosophers gathered students around them, disciples they called them back then. Today we call them students. We have disciples of, medicine. We have disciples of music, if we want to use such ancient terms, but it was simply students. And it was these students who often wrote down the teachings and passed them on to the next generation. Philosophy was also associated with the upper classes, as only the rich had time and leisure to devote to this form of higher education. And it was through their writings philosophy contributed to the eventual views of monotheism for both Christians and also the Jews. And even in Christianity, we see early evidence of the birth of monotheism in the letters of Paul, who said was around the 50 or 60 CE, where he writes in Book 1 of Corinthians, chapter 8, verse 5, even though there may be so-called gods in heaven or on earth, as in fact there are many lords, yet for us there is one God, the Father. So this is where he implies if you declare yourself to be Christian, then for you there is only one God. And Paul often seemed to be at odds with this thing about other gods. He was against the other gods who impeded his mission, and he writes something to that effect in Book 2 of the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 4, where wouldn't that acknowledge the existence of other gods? I don't know, but that seems to be an oxymoron. Keep in mind man's role in influencing, by force or fear, the conversion of faith. The Bronze Period, which is the storyline where Homer chooses to put the Odyssey, is filled with many gods and goddesses, as well as minor deities. New beliefs were being peddled. Many Jews were living in Greece because of the oppression. Again, keep in mind the people of that era had different values and beliefs. Girls were married off as soon as they could menstruate. That would put them around, 11, 12 years old? Boys were sent off to military training as young as 8 years old. And life expectancy was, if you're lucky to get to 40, you were an old person. So it is towards the end of the Bronze Age that many folks were adopting the Jewish concept of refusing to worship the other gods. Refusing to comply to this new system was considered as treason to the Roman Empire, considered actually a capital offense. And there was a lot of persecution happening during that time. And it's looking at this whole thing that's happening during that time, and you would wonder, what's the impact? What else was happening during that time? Why was this such an influence? Why was this having such an impact? Well, we take a look at the era, and historically, Greece had many Jews. Ptolemy I is credited with freeing over 100,000 Jewish slaves. And guess where they went? I mean, even Ptolemy, I don't know if it's the first also, he got credited with bringing over Jewish scholars that were in the area, speaking Greek by now. And people don't get this. I mean, I speak 2 languages. My husband speaks 2 languages, and our child, our only child, speaks 1, except of course the language of music. And I told him the other day, I told my son, I says, do you realize that if you do not take on a second language, our cultural languages, both my husband's and I speak Spanish, my husband speaks Czech, and literally could die in the next generation from this bloodline. So it isn't unusual to kind of imagine that when Ptolemy asked for these Jewish scholars of the area who were living there now 2 or 3 generations to write the Septuagint, which is the original stories of the Bible, are the translations from the Greek. So these scholars living in the area, a couple generations, spoke Greek. And so the Bible and Old Testament that we see today were translated from Greek to the versions we see. And so, again, as we go back to the end of the Bronze period, the collapse of the Roman Empire, and the rise of the Byzantine Empire under Constantine, we're now, 312 CE? Constantine became a Christian and legalized Christianity so that persecution ceased. However, something happened and there was a heated debate about Christ being subordinate to God and that he was not equal to God, but, some saying, well, he's sitting at the right hand of God, putting him where? At the place of creation. Anyways, check out the links in the description because apparently riots broke out over that matter in Alexandria and other cities of the empire, and who knows, maybe that's what the whole thing about burning the Alexandria library was about. Trying to cover something up. I don't know. What do you think? Anyway, today, researchers say that the world's largest religion is Christianity, and it's practiced by about 2.4 billion people. Now, to understand that Greece was the birthplace of today's religion as we know it, and to know the metamorphosis that it took to look like what it looks like today, is not for the squeamish of heart of faith. Knowledge and wisdom should not make you weak in your personal faith, no matter how ugly it looks. To know that the Bronze Age, in an unstructured way, we were just getting around the idea to put things in writing. Our politics, our philosophy, our scientific findings, our medicine, and our idea of who we are in respect to something greater, our origins. Much of Western civilization, government, and religion had its roots in the Greek. And Homer's Odyssey is just a small window to that past. I invite you to sit back as we travel in time with the Odyssey by Homer, translated from Greek to English by Robert Fitzgerald. Book 15. How they came to Ithaka. South into Lacedaemon, into the land where greens are wide for dancing, Athena went, to put in mind of home her great-hearted hero's honored son, rousing him to return. And there she found him with Nestor's lad in the late night at rest under the portico of Menelaus, the famous king. Stilled by the power of slumber the son of Nestor lay, but honey-eyed sleep had not yet taken in her arms Telemachus. All through the starlit night, with open eyes, he pondered what he had heard about his father, until at his bedside gray-eyed Athena towered and said, "The brave thing now, Telemachus, would be to end this journey far from home. All that you own you left behind with men so lost to honor in your house they may devour it all, shared out among them. How will your journey save you then? Go quickly to the lord of the great war cry, Menelaus. Press him to send you back. You may yet find the queen, your mother, in her rooms alone. It seems her father and her kinsmen say Eurymachus is the man for her to marry. He has outdone the suitors, all the rest, in gifts to her, and made his pledges double. Check him, or he will have your hands and chattels in spite of you. You know a woman's pride at bringing riches to the man she marries. As to her girlhood husband, her first children, he is forgotten, being dead, and they no longer worry her. So act alone. Go back and trust your riches to the servant worthiest in your eyes until the gods make known what beauty you yourself shall marry. This too I have to tell you. Now take heed. The suitors' ringleaders are hot for murder, waiting in the channel between Ithaka and Sammy's rocky side. They mean to kill you before you can set a foot ashore. I doubt they'll bring it off. Dark earth instead may take to her cold bed a few brave suitors who preyed upon your cattle. Bear well out in your good ship to eastward of the islands, and sail again by night. Someone immortal who cares for you will make a fair wind blow. Touch at the first beach, go ashore, and send your ship and crew around to port by sea, while you go inland to the forester, your old friend, loyal keeper of the swine. Remain that night with him. Send him to town to tell your watchful mother Penelope that you are back from Pylos safe and sound. With this, Athena left for Olympus. He swung his foot across and gave a kick and said to the son of Nestor, "Open your eyes, Pisistratus. Get our team into harness. We have a long day's journey." Nestor's son turned over and answered him, "It is still night and no moon. Can we drive now?" "We cannot, itch as we may for the road home. Dawn is near. Allow the captain of spearmen, Menelaus, time to pack our car with gifts and time to speak a gracious word sending us off. A guest remembers all his days that host who makes provision for him kindly." The dawn soon took her throne of gold, and Lord Menelaus, clarion in battle, rose from where he lay beside the beauty of Helen with her shining hair. He strode into the hall nearby. Hearing him come, Odysseus' son pulled on his snowy tunic over the skin, gathered his long cape about his breadth of shoulder like a captain, the heir of King Odysseus. At the door he stood and said, "Lord Marshal Menelaus, send me home now to my own dear country. Longing has come upon me to go home." The Lord of the great war cry said at once, "If you are longing to go home, Telemachus, I would not keep you for the world, not I. I'd think myself or any other host as ill-mannered for over-friendliness as for hostility. Measure's best in everything. To send a guest packing or cling to him when he's in haste, one sin equals the other. Good entertaining ends with no detaining. Only let me load your car with gifts and fine ones, you shall see. I'll bid the women set out breakfast from the larder stores. Honor and appetite, we'll attend to both before a long day's journey overland. Or would you care to try the Argive Midlands and Hellas in my company? I'll harness my own team and take you through the towns. Guests like ourselves no lord will turn away. Each one will make one gift, at least to carry home with us, tripod or cauldron wrought in bronze, mule team or golden cup." Clear-headed Telemachus replied, "Lord Marshal Menelaus, royal son of Atreus, I must return to my own hearth. I left no one behind as guardian of my property. This going abroad for news of a great father, heaven forbid it, be my own undoing, or any precious thing be lost at home." At this the tall king, clarion in battle, called to his lady and her waiting women to give them breakfast from the larder stores. Eteoneus, the son of Boethus, came straight from bed, from where he'd lodged nearby, and Menelaus ordered a fire lit for broiling mutton. The king's man obeyed. Then down to the cedar chamber Menelaus walked with Helen and Prince Megapenthes. Amid the gold he had in that place lying, the son of Atreus picked a wine cup, wrought with handles left and right, and told his son to take a silver wine bowl. Helen lingered near the deep coffers filled with gowns, her own handiwork. Tall goddess among women, she lifted out one robe of state so royal, adorned and brilliant with embroidery. Deep in the chest it shimmered like a star. Now all three turned back to the door to greet Telemachus, and red-haired Menelaus cried out to him, "O Prince Telemachus, may Hera's Lord of Thunder see you home and bring you to the welcome you desire. Here are your gifts, perfect and precious things I wish to make your own out of my treasure." And gently the great captain, son of Atreus, handed him the goblet. Megapenthes carried the wine bowl, glinting silvery, to set before him, and the lady Helen drew near, so that he saw her cheeks' pure line. She held the gown and murmured, "I, too, bring you a gift, dear child, and here it is. Remember Helen's hands by this. Keep it for your own bride, your joyful wedding day. Let your dear mother guard it in her chamber. My blessing, may you come soon to your island, home to your timbered hall." So she bestowed it, and happily he took it. These fine things Pisistratus packed well in the wicker carrier, admiring every one. Then Menelaus led the two guests in to take their seats on thrones and easy chairs in the great hall. Now came a maid to tip a golden jug of water over a silver finger bowl, and drew the polished tables up beside them. The larder mistress brought her tray of loaves, with many savories to lavish on. Viands were served by Etonius, and wine by Menelaus' son. Then every hand reached out upon good meat and drink to take them, driving away hunger and thirst. At last Telemachus and Nestor's son led out their team to harness, mounted their bright car, and drove down under the echoing entrance away, while red-haired Menelaus, Atreus' son, walked alongside with a golden cup, wine for the wayfarers to spill at parting. Then by the tugging team he stood, and spoke over the horses' heads. "Farewell, my lads. Homage to Nestor, the benevolent king. In my time he was fatherly to me, when the flower of Achaia warred on Troy." Telemachus made this reply, "No fear, but we shall bear at least as far as Nestor your messages, great king. How I could wish to bring them home to Ithaka. If only Odysseus were there, if he could hear me tell of all the courtesy I have found from you, returning with your finery and your treasure." Even as he spoke, a beat of wings went skyward off to the right, a mountain eagle grappling a white goose in his talons, heavy prey hooked from a farmyard. Women and men at arms made hubbub, running up as he flew over, but when he wheeled hard right before the horses, a sight that made the whole crowd cheer, with hearts lifting in joy. Pisistratus called out, "Read us the sign, O Menelaus, Lord, Marshal of Armies. Was the god revealing something thus to you or to ourselves?" At this the old friend of the god of battle groped in his mind for the right thing to say, but regal Helen put in quickly, "Listen, I can tell you. Tell what the omen means, as light is given me, and as I see it point by point fulfilled. The beaked eagle flew from the wild mountain of his fathers to take for prey the tame house bird. Just so, Odysseus, back from his hard trials and wandering, will soon come home in fury on his house. He may be there today, and a black hour he brings upon the suitors." Telemachus gazed and said, "May Zeus, the lord of Hera, make it so. In far-off Ithaka all my life I shall invoke you as a goddess lady." He let the whip fall, and the restive mares broke forward at a canter through the town into the open country. All that day they kept their harness shaking side by side until at sundown, when the roads grew dim, they made a halt at Vedae. There Diocles, son of Ortilochus, whom Alpheus fathered, welcomed the young men, and they slept the night. Up when the young dawn's fingertips of rose opened in the east, they hitched the team once more to the painted car and steered out westward through the echoing gate, whipping their fresh horses into a run. Approaching Pylos' height at the day's end, Telemachus appealed to the son of Nestor. "Could you, I wonder, do a thing I'll tell you, supposing you agree? We take ourselves to be true friends, in age alike, and bound by ties between our fathers, and now by partnership in this adventure. Prince, do not take me roundabout, but leave me at the ship, else the old king, your father, will detain me overnight for love of guests, when I should be at sea." The son of Nestor nodded, thinking swiftly how best he could oblige his friend. Here was his choice: to pull the team hard over along the beach till he could rein them in beside the ship, unloading Menelaus's royal keepsake into the stern sheets. He sang out, "Now for action! Get aboard, and call your men, before I break the news at home in hall to father, who knows better the old man's heart than I. If you delay, he will not let you go, but he'll descend on you in person and imperious. No turning back with empty hands for him, believe me, once his blood is up." He shook the reins to the lovely mares with long manes in the wind, guiding them full tilt toward his father's hall. Telemachus called in the crew and told them, "Get everything shipshape aboard this craft. We pull out now, and put sea mile behind us." The listening men obeyed him, climbing in to settle on their benches by the rowlocks, while he stood watchful by the stern. He poured out offerings there and prayers to Athena. Now a strange man came up to him, an Easterner fresh from spilling blood in distant Argos, a hunted man. Gifted in prophecy, he had as forebear that Melampus wizard who lived of old in Pylos, mother city of western flocks. Melampus, a rich lord, had owned a house unmatched among the Pylians, until the day came when King Neleus, noblest in that age, drove him from his native land. And Neleus, for a year's term, sequestered Melampus' fields and flocks, while he lay bound hand and foot in the keep of Phylacus. Beauty of Neleus' daughter put him there, and somewhere folly, the unbreaking fury, thrust upon him. But he gave the slip to death, and drove the bellowing herd of Iphiclus from Phylace to Pylos, there to claim the bride that ordeal won him from the king. He led her to his brother's house, and went on eastward into another land, the blue grass of plain of Argos. Destiny held for him rule over many Argives. Here he married, built a great manor house, fathered Antiphates and Mantios, commanders both, of whom Antiphates begot Oicles, and Oicles the firebrand Amphiaros. This champion the lord of storm-cloud Zeus and strong Apollo loved, nor had he ever to cross the dorsal into dim old age. A woman, bought by trinkets, gave him over to be cut down in the assault on Thebes. His sons were Alcmaeon and Amphilochus. In the meantime, Lord Mantios begot Polyphetes the prophet, and Cleitos, famous name, for dawn in silks of gold carried off Cleitos for his beauty to live among the gods. But Polyphetes, high-hearted and exalted by Apollo, above all men for prophecy, withdrew to Hyperesia when his father angered him. He lived on there, foretelling to the world the shape of things to come. His son it was, Theoclymenus, who came upon Telemachus as he poured out the red wine in the sand near his trim ship, with prayer to Athena, and he called out, approaching, "Friend, well met here at libation before going to sea. I pray you by the wine you spend, and by your God, your own life, and your company, enlighten me, and let the truth be known. Who are you? Of what city and what parents?" Telemachus turned to him and replied, "Stranger, as truly as may be, I'll tell you. I am from Ithaka, where I was born. My father is, or he once was, Odysseus, but he's a long time gone, and dead, maybe, and that is what I took ship with my friends to find out, for he left long years ago." Said Theoclymenus in reply, "I too have had to leave my home. I killed a cousin. In the wide grazing lands of Argos lived many kinsmen of his and friends in power, great among the Achaeans. These I fled, death and vengeance at my back. As fate has turned now, I came wandering overland. Give me a plank aboard your ship, I beg, or they will kill me. They are on my track." Telemachus made answer, "No two ways about it. Will I pry you from our gunwale when you are desperate to get to sea? Come aboard, share what we have, and welcome. He took the bronze-shod lance from the man's hand and laid it down full length on deck, then swung his own weight after it aboard the cutter, taking position aft, making a place for Theoclymenus near him. The stern lines were slacked off, and Telemachus commanded, "Right the mast! Make sail!" Nimbly they ran to push the fur pole high and step it firm amidship in the box, make fast the forestays, and hoist aloft the white sail on its halyards. A following wind came down from grey-eyed Athena, blowing brisk through heaven, and so steady the cutter lapped up miles of salt blue sea, passing Cronio abeam and Caucasus estuary at sundown, when the sea waves all grew dark. Then, by Athena's wind borne on, the ship rounded Phaea by night and coasted Elis, the green domain of the Epioi. Thence he put her head north toward the running pack of islets, wondering if by sailing wide he sheared off death, or would be caught. That night Odysseus and the swineherd supped again with herdsmen in their mountain hut. At ease when appetite and thirst were turned away, Odysseus, while he talked, observed the swineherd to see if he were hospitable still, if yet again the man would make him stay under his roof, or send him off to town. "Listen," he said, "Eumaeus, listen, lads. At daybreak I must go and try my luck around the port. I burden you too long. Direct me, put me on the board with someone. Nothing else for it but to play the beggar in populous parts. I'll get a cup or loaf, maybe, from some householder. If I go as far as the great hall of King Odysseus, I might tell Queen Penelope my news. Or I can drift inside among the suitors to see what alms they give, rich as they are. If they have whims, I am deft in ways of service, that I can say, and you may know for sure. By grace of Hermes the wayfinder, patron of mortal task, the god who honors toil, no man can do a chore better than I can. Send me to build a fire, or chop wood, cook or carve, mix wine and serve, or anything inferior men attend for the gentry." Now you were furious at this, Eumaeus, and answered, "O my swineherd, friend, how could this fantasy take hold of you? You dally with your life, and nothing less. If you feel drawn to mingle in that company, reckless, violent, and famous for it, out to the rim of heaven, slaves they have, but not like you. No, theirs are boys in fresh cloaks and tunics, with pomade ever on their sleek heads and pretty faces. These are their minions, while their tables gleam and groan under big roasts, with loaves and wine. Stay with us here. No one is burdened by you, neither myself nor any of my hands. Wait here until Odysseus' son returns. You shall have clothing from him, cloak and tunic, and passage where your heart desires to go." The noble and enduring man replied, "May you be dear to Zeus for this, Eumaeus, even as you are to me. Respite from pain you give me, and from homelessness. In life there's nothing worse than knocking about the world. No bitterness we vagabonds are spared when the crust's belly rages. Well, you master it and me, making me wait for the king's son. But how? Come tell me. What of Odysseus' mother and his father, whom he took leave of on the sill of age? Are they under the sun's rays, living still, or gone down long ago to lodge with death?" To this the rugged herdsman answered, "Ay, that I can tell you. It is briefly told. Laertes lives, but daily in his hall prays to the end of life and soul's delivery, heartbroken as he is for a son long gone and for his lady. Sorrow, when she died, aged and enfeebled him like a green tree stricken, but pining for her son, her brilliant son, or out her life. Would God no death so sad might come to benefactors dear as she. I love always to ask and hear about her while she lived, although she lived in sorrow, for she had brought me up with her own daughter, Princess Timene, her youngest child. We were like in age, and nursed as equals nearly. till in the flower of our years they gave her, married her, to a Samian prince, taking his many gifts. For my own portion her mother gave new clothing, cloak and sandals, and sent me to the woodland. Well, she loved me. Ah, how I miss that family! It is true, the blissful gods prosper my work. I have meat and drink to spare for those I prize. But so removed I am. I have no speech with my sweet mistress, now that evil days and overbearing men darken her house. Tenants all hanker for good talk and gossip around their lady, and a snack in hall, a cup or two before they take the road to their homeacres, each one bearing home some gift to cheer his heart. The great tactician answered, You were still a child, I see, when exiled somehow from your parents' land. Tell me, had it been sacked in war, the city of spacious ways in which they made their home, your father and your gentle mother? Or were you kidnapped alone, brought here by sea, huddled with sheep in some foul pirate squadron, to this landowner's hall? He paid you ransom? The master of the woodland answered, Friend, now that you show an interest in that matter, attend me quietly, be at your ease, and drink your wine. These autumn nights are long, ample for storytelling and for sleep. You need not go to bed before the hour. Sleeping from dusk to dawn's a dull affair. Let any other here who wishes, though, retire to rest. At daybreak let him breakfast and take the king's own swine into the wilderness. Here's a tight roof. We'll drink on, you and I, and ease our hearts of hardships we remember, sharing old times. In latter days a man can find a charm in old adversity, exile, and pain. As to your question, now, a certain island, Syri by name, you may have heard the name, lies off Ortygia, due west, and holds the sunsets of the year. Not very populous, but good for grazing sheep and kine, rich too in wine and grain. No dearth is ever known there, no disease wars on the folk, or ills that plague mankind. But when the townsmen reach old age, Apollo with his long bow of silver comes, and Artemis showering arrows of mild death. 2 towns divided the farmlands of that whole domain, and both were ruled by Theseus, my father, Ormeneus' heir, and a great godlike man. Now, one day, some of these renowned seafaring men, sea dogs, Phoenicians, came ashore with bags of gauds and for trading. Father had in our household a woman of Phoenicia, a handsome one and highly skilled. Well, she gave in to the seductions of those rovers. One of them found her washing near the mooring and lay with her, making such love to her as women in their frailty are confused by, even the best of them. In due course, then, he asked her who she was and where she hailed from, and nodding toward my father's roof, she said, I am of Sidon town, smithy of bronze for all the East, Arubas Pasha's daughter. Taphian pirates caught me in a byway and sold me into slavery overseas in this man's home. He could afford my ransom. The sailor who had lain with her replied, Why not ship out with us on the run homeward, and see your father's high-roofed hall again, your father and your mother? Still in Sidon and still rich they are said to be. She answered, It could be done, that. If your sailors take oath, I'll be given passage home unharmed. Well, soon she had them swearing it all pat as she desired, repeating every syllable, whereupon she warned them, Not a word about our meeting here. Never call out to me when any of you see me in the lane or at the well. Some visitor might bear tales to the old man. If he guessed the truth, I'd be chained up. Your lives would be in peril. No, keep it a secret. Hurry with your peddling, and when your hold is filled with livestock, send a message to me at the manor hall. Gold I'll bring, whatever comes to hand, and something else too, as my passage fee. The master's child, my charge, a boy so high, bright for his age. He runs with me on errands. I'd take him with me happily. His price would be I know not what in sail abroad. Her bargain made, she went back to the manor, but they were on the island all that year, getting by trade a cargo of our cattle, until, the ship at length being laden full, ready for sea, they sent a messenger to the Phoenician woman. Shrewd he was, this fellow who come around my father's hall, showing a golden chain all strung with amber, a necklace. Maids in waiting and my mother passed it from hand to hand, admiring it, engaging they would buy it. But that dodger, as soon as he had caught the woman's eye and nodded, slipped away to join the ship. She took my hand and led me through the court into the portico. There by luck she found wine cups and tables still in place. Forefathers' attendant counselors had dined just now before they went to the assembly. Quickly, she hid 3 goblets in her bellying dress to carry with her, while I tagged along in my bewilderment. The sun went down, and all the lanes grew dark as we descended, skirting the harbor in our haste to where those traders of Phoenicia held their ship. All went aboard at once and put to sea, taking the 2 of us. A favoring wind blew from the power of heaven. We sailed on 6 nights and days without event. Then Zeus, the son of Cronos, added 1 more moon, and sudden arrows from Artemis pierced the woman's heart. Stone dead she dropped into the sloshing bilge the way a tern plummets, and the sailors heaved her over as tender pickings for the seals and fish. Now I was left in dread, alone, while wind and current before them on to Ithaka. Laertes purchased me. That was the way I first laid eyes upon this land. Odysseus, the kingly man, replied, You roused my pity, telling what you endured when you were young, but surely Zeus put good alongside ill. Torn from your own far home, you had the luck to come into a kind man's service, generous with food and drink. And a good life you lead, unlike my own, all spent in barren roaming from one country to the next, till now. So the 2 men talked on, into the night, leaving few hours for sleep before the dawn stepped up to her bright chair. The ship now drifting under the island lee, Telemachus' companions took in sail and mast, unshipped the oars, and rowed ashore. They moored her stern by the stout hawser lines, tossed out the bowstones, and waded in beyond the wash of ripples to mix their wine and cook their morning meal. When they had turned back hunger and thirst, Telemachus arose to give the order of the day. Pull for the town, he said, and berth our ship while I go inland across country. Later, this evening, after looking at my farms, I'll join you in the city. When day comes, I hope to celebrate our crossing, feasting everyone on good red meat and wine. His noble passenger, Theoclymenus, now asked, What as to me, my dear young fellow, where shall I go? Will I find lodging here with someone of the lords of stony Ithaka, or go straight to your mother's hall and yours? Telemachus turned around to him and said, I should myself invite you to our hall if things were otherwise. There'd be no lack of entertainment for you. As it stands, no place could be more wretched for a guest while I'm away. Mother will never see you. She almost never shows herself at home to the suitors there, but stays in her high chamber weaving upon her loom. Now, let me name another man for you to go to visit. Eurymachus, the honored son of Polybus. In Ithaka they are dazzled by him now, the strongest of their princes, bent on making mother and all Odysseus' wealth his own. Zeus on Olympus only knows if some dark hour for them will intervene. The words were barely spoken when a hawk, Apollo's courier, flew up on the right, clutching a dove and plucking her, so feathers floated down to the ground between Telemachus and the moored cutter. Theoclymenus called them apart and gripped his hand, whispering, A god spoke in this bird sign on the right. I knew it when I saw the hawk fly over us. There's no kinglier house than yours, Telemachus, here in the realm of Ithaka. Your family will be in power forever. The young prince, clear in spirit, answered, Be it so, friend, as you say. And may you know as well the friendship of my house and many gifts from me, so everyone may call you fortunate. He called a trusted crewman named Perarios and said to him, Perarios, son of Clydios, can I rely on you again as ever, most of all friends who sailed with me to Pylos? Take this man home with you, take care of him, treat him with honor till I come. To this, Perarios, the good spearsman, answered, Hey, stay in the wild country while you will. I shall be looking after him, Telemachus. He will not lack good lodging. Down to the ship he turned, and boarded her, and called the others to cast off the stern lines and come aboard. So men climbed in to sit beside the rowlocks. Telemachus now tied his sandals on and lifted his tough spear from the ship's deck. Hawsers were taken in, and they shoved off to reach the town by way of open sea, as he commanded them. Royal Odysseus' own dear son, Telemachus. On foot, and swiftly he went up toward the stockade where swine were penned in hundreds, and at night the guardian of the swine, the forester, slept under arms on duty for his masters. End of Book 15. If you haven't done so, hit that like button and head over to the next video where we continue with Book 16, Father and Son.